charge. Okay. What else?
Well, they extended their border.
Yeah, so they even made what was formerly known as New France even larger. So they extended the border of Quebec. Okay? So they were allowed to keep the French property laws, seigneurial system. They extended Quebec boundaries south towards the Ohio Valley. And the churches were allowed to continue to collect taxes and offer services. Now you need to think about with the Royal Proclamation, okay? At first they said that nobody was allowed to move west into the Ohio Valley. Now they extended the French borders, the Quebec borders to Ohio Valley. So this was very upsetting for the people in the 13 colonies because they wanted to move there and now they were told they couldn't. And now the French had all this territory, or the French Canadians had all this territory. Okay, yeah, Harry?
We're doing cons now?
Yeah, we're going to do cons now. So what are some of the cons of the Quebec Act?
The First Nations lost almost all of their land.
Well, we're doing it from the French perspective.
Oh,
Okay. But yes, you're absolutely right. That would be a con for the First Nations because they lost a lot of land.
The British merchants are still angry, so that may cause harm for the French merchants.
Very good. So British merchants who were living with the French Canadians, who assimilate them, okay, still moved into the area that we now know as Quebec. Okay, so they still lived amongst the French Canadians. There was a lot of fear that the Americans, the English-speaking, the people from the 13 colonies, would cause conflict with Britain. So they were afraid that a war might break out. Okay? What else what else was a con? Ian?
Oh, it basically made like everyone angry.
Yeah.
Because like the First Nations lost a lot of land, and the British had to stay in the 13 colonies, so they're not ramped, so that made them mad. And then the French, well, they had to move because they had to move south because they had that land now.
Yep.
And
some of them moved south, not all of them.
Also, the people in the 13 colonies were like pestering them to start fighting with them.
Okay.
Start fighting the British.
You're right. With the Quebec Act was a really good thing for the French Canadians, but it was not a good thing for anyone else, for the First Nations or the Americans. So it did create a lot of conflict between the English-speaking people and the French-speaking people. Ethan?
Well, also something that might be a con for the heavy tones is well, I don't know if they know what the British did to the Acadians, right? And then they're being so nice to them, but they might even do that to them too.
Okay, yeah, so there's definitely...
They might suddenly expel them.
Yeah, so there's fear of that, yeah. Shauna?
What does assimilate mean?
Pardon?
What does assimilate mean?
Assimilate means to give up one person's culture and to adopt a new culture.
Doesn't simile mean something today, a modern word?
Yeah, so assimilate still means the same thing. So we expect immigrants who come to Canada to assimilate. What that means is we expect them to give up their culture and adopt Canadian culture or Western culture.
Awesome.
Isn't that like a modern culture where like everybody like goes down to the gym and then there's something like important to announce?
That's not assembly.
Alright.
Okay. Some of the other cons that you might say for the French Canadians are that they still have to pay taxes to the church. The British actually had control over, they came up with the laws that governed them criminally. So they decided what the crimes were and what the punishment was going to be. So the British had control over the criminal and court system. Okay? And you could see this as a con too. You might be afraid that if somebody is British who's governing a court or the criminal system,